Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Today I got a very fun and random episode for you guys this evening as I'm taking you along with a game room upgrade. When I say game room, I just mean my living room, because if you know anything about me and the channel, I don't actually have a traditional game room. I've got a very large collection, but I like to try to hide it behind certain things so that if you walked into my house, you really wouldn't know I played video games whatsoever outside of a few things on a TV stand and my actual studio in the house. And the entire reason that we're doing this upgrade is not just because I felt like a new setup, it's because the television in front of you, this 60-inch Samsung 4K, no longer displays an image whatsoever. You can turn it on, it does get audio, but for some random reason, this thing has gone completely dead in the actual panel. There is no backlight whatsoever, there is no image. I turned the television on and everything just went to absolute hell one morning, and I figured I should probably upgrade this and I could make a video out of it bringing you through my gaming setup, because so many of you guys actually want to see the behind the scenes of how things work. And again, I even checked the panel here with a bright light. If you're ever not sure whether or not your backlight died or your panel died, if you flash a strong flashlight into it, you'll be able to see an image on the screen if there is one there. This panel just was 100% dead, so I had no other choice. So I figured, why not upgrade and why not go for the brass ring? So I went out and picked up an LG C4 OLED television, and I thought that this would be a good choice for my gaming setup. It does 140 Hz on the refresh rate, so it's going to be great for stuff like PC gaming. I got it in a 65-inch model. I almost went 77, but I didn't really have the space, or at least I didn't think. And the best part is this is MiSTer FPGA ready. I'll get more into that later on in the video, but it's going to be great for all of my MiSTer setups. But honestly, this TV stand belies a lot of fun and random things. I have different consoles stored throughout the house, but I kind of keep some of my favorite things up front, just so when I do want to use them. So I'll just open up these doors here and show you kind of what I keep quote unquote on tap, but these aren't hooked up whatsoever. I do need to take them out anytime I want to use them. And if you're wondering why there's so much dog hair, folks, do not get a corgi. But this is what is in the main living room here, and I'll go shelf by shelf kind of explain it, because there's definitely some rarities in here, like a 3DO M2 console. I just keep it underneath the television like it's any other machine. But we got the Duo R, the Wii U, and the 3DO M2 in one console. The other one we have PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X Pro model, as well as some handhelds. And over here I've got a Nintendo 64, a Super Nintendo, and an FM Town Smarty. It is a very weird collection of consoles to keep in the living room. The rest of the stuff is in my studio, and I do need to take my gun for IR sensors off because I do use that on my television, and unfortunately the C4 doesn't really seem to have big enough bezels to actually mount those sensors to the side, so I'm going to have to think of something else. Where this television here has to come off, and I need to rethink the entire setup, because you will see in a moment I haven't really done much with this in the last couple of years, so it is an absolute rat's nest of cables behind it, and this is have to do some cable management because it's not exactly clean behind. And I will say I took down this old television and built the new LG C4 on my own because my wife was at work, and that is not advisable whatsoever, but I'm the type of stubborn person that just wants to get something done, so I figured I could probably do it myself. And of course, trying to shoot the entire process at the same time meant this took the better part of an entire afternoon, and I had to do day 2 just to get the rest of the shoot done. But right now you'll see how much stuff is behind this television. I've got my PSVR 2 controllers back there because I really haven't used that system for a while. I've got a sea of different cables, including stuff like HDMI cables that aren't even connected to anything else. This is a long overdue project, and I've been meaning to do it since last year. I was going to do it in the fall, but I decided I'd wait one more year because I had plans on upgrading the TV, just not this quick because it ended up dying. Even my PlayStation 4 VR camera is behind there, and honestly I still play more PlayStation 4 VR on the original PSVR than on the new one. And the same thing is going on underneath the cabinet as well. I need to cut some zip ties back there, but again, I've just been needing to cable manage this thing forever because I'm constantly hooking and unhooking things for different captures and videos. It's kind of a setup in progress, and today hopefully I will get it done. But the first thing to do is definitely dust this all down and make sure it is clean, because a lot of you guys like to joke and say there's a lot of dust in my camera shoots, and that's just what happens when you live in a city with your windows open, a dog and a cat. There's hair and there's dust everywhere. I dust at least once a week, and it is a never-ending job, but I figure while I'm here we may as well get a nice clean surface, because this is again a quote-unquote game room upgrade tour, so you get to see kind of how I play things. And I'll move the Yoshi to the side because he's just been sitting there for like 5 or 6 years. My dog is desperate to try to get him and play with it, but honestly she just can't have him. We'll pop him up in the corner there. So now you'll see we have the entire setup, basically ready to receive the TV, and it's quote unquote clean. I'm going to do more in the background, but this is what it looks like right now. And these are all the cords I was able to remove from the setup that weren't doing anything whatsoever. All of these cables are just basically hooked up at one point in time, and I kind of just stashed them behind the television thinking I'd get to them, and really didn't do anything. And when it actually comes to putting this stand on the television, this has got to be the hardest part of the entire process. They give you this IKEA style hieroglyphic map here, and honestly I just tossed it to the side and kind of did it by look and feel. I was able to get the stand on perfectly fine, but LG did an amazing job on the panel. Maybe the stand installation could be a little bit better, but I was able to get this thing up and on my TV stand as a solo project. And again, this is not how you should move TVs whatsoever, but it did work for me, and it is now ready to start getting into some actual gaming once I turn off basically every image processing device on the television. This thing has a ton of different modes that's trying to quote unquote improve your picture. You should turn absolutely every single one of them off. And I know everyone out there loves peels, so I try to do this in one single shot from off camera as well as to not obstruct the actual peel. And I will say, I think you guys are going to give me a relatively good peel rating on this, because I was able to get this entire thing off in one shot. So we could actually get down to the panel, and you'll see there the LG C4 is now unwrapped in my living room. But I will say, I wish they wouldn't put the energy saving sticker down here, because you basically have to touch the television and put a fingerprint on it before you ever really even get a chance to do anything. I wish they had put that on top of the peel. Another strange decision, but again, another incredible television. The other reason I wanted to pick up a new TV is all 4 of these ports are HDMI 2.1, where on my original television only one of the ports could actually do anything like HDR, so this was definitely an improvement over that. And the minute I loaded up Astrobot, I will say this TV looks absolutely gorgeous in person. It is incredibly hard to capture that in something like a camera, but this looks spectacular. It looks so much better than my old Samsung 4K. It was a night and day difference when I actually looked at this image. So for this reason and this reason alone, as far as the gaming television is concerned, for modern hardware, this thing is absolutely a great choice if you want to upgrade your gaming setup. And if you've never played Astrobot, I know it is still relatively new, definitely check it out. It is a straight up 10 out of 10, amazing platformer, rivaling anything that Nintendo has ever done. And it's not like Nintendo's bad at making platform games, but that is not the focus of this video. And if we go in a little bit, move the camera closer to the screen, you can see the absolute clarity of this image, how many pixels it's resolving here, and just how incredibly good it does look. Now be aware that I am capturing this at 24 frames a second, not at 60. I do not like the way camera footage looks at 60 frames per second, so the motion is going to be slightly different than you would see in real life, but we're really just talking about the fine detail here. And even this close up to the television, it just looks absolutely stunning and blows my old Samsung 4K out of the water. Not just in the image quality, but in the latency as well, because I checked with Mr. Laggy on MiSTer FPGA and I did some other latency tests behind the scenes and pulled some data. This has sub 1 frame latency on all of the inputs between you pushing a button and the panel responding. It's around 8 milliseconds in gaming mode. That means you're never going to have any input delay. You can't blame latency if you don't do what it is that you want to do. And it also has VRR support, so whatever frame rate you're going to put into it, it's going to lock to that. Obviously on PlayStation 5 it's going to be a standardized frame rate, but if you want to do something like play WonderSwan on MiSTer FPGA, you can get it that 75 Hz refresh rate, and it's going to support that. And there's so many different game modes, but honestly standard just seems to be the one that works for me. And you also have some prevent input latency lag delays as both standard, and you can also go into what they say is a boost mode. This changed it by about 2 milliseconds, but even in standard it was underneath 1 frame of lag, which means you really don't need to touch much of it whatsoever, because if you have a frame perfect input, you're going to be able to do it on this television right here. And that's what genuinely matters. My old Samsung probably had around 20 milliseconds of lag on its gaming mode, and while that wasn't the worst thing in the world, it definitely was something that did drive me a little bit nuts, especially on the MiSTer FPGA side of things, where we're introducing no latency into the core in and of itself. And you'll see here you get all of these different options right off the top, and you can kind of dial in whatever you want. It gives you just enough granular control to make things your own, but not so many settings that you're not quite sure what any of them are. So now we just have to basically take care of the sound on this so we can get the setup complete. I'm popping my old soundbar back in here, and it does have 2 speakers on the left and right for the surround satellites, and they do work in wireless mode, and that is a new dog toy. My dog has hundreds of them, and the subwoofer nicely slides underneath the couch, so you can put it in the center seat, and basically if you sit in the center of the couch, you're directly in line with the television. You have the subwoofer directly underneath your ass, and you're sitting in the sweet spot for that 5.1 surround. And honestly, I did think about upgrading this setup to Atmos and a bigger sub, but I live in a condo with neighbors below me and above me in Chicago, and that kind of seemed like a dick move. Gotta be a good neighbor there, so I'll keep the sound as is. But of course, one of the primary reasons for a television like this, at least for me, is using it with MiSTer FPGA and the RetroTink 4K, because that gives you so many other options. You know, if you watch the channel, MiSTer FPGA is a big component of this, and if you somehow stumbled onto this video for a television review for gaming, definitely check out the playlist. MiSTer might be something you like. So I keep the MiSTer FPGA to one side of the television, that way I can use it whenever I want, and again, dog here, not much you can do about that. And I keep the RetroTink 4K to the other side, so I can do direct video 1 mode in for everything MiSTer FPGA. And just loading up something like Metal Slug 3 on the Neo Geo core with direct video mode on into the RetroTink 4K gives me that scaling outside of the television, because while the television does an incredible job scaling all sorts of content, RetroTink 4K just does a slightly better job and gives me all of those scan lines and masks that I want. So you can basically do anything to your heart's content. And I understand hooking up a MiSTer FPGA and a RetroTink 4K to an LG C4 television isn't going to be the setup that most people actually build in their house. It's a little bit high-end and intense, but the best part is I am a filmmaker, so this is going to be used for more than just video game content. And you'll see here, if I put an aperture grill on, just how defined those lines truly look. It looks absolutely outstanding on the C4, better than any TV I've ever seen it on. And the best part is, because the RetroTink 4K offers HDR support, upping the brightness of the screen in front of you, you can use that in conjunction with a television to put on whatever masks or grills you want and still get a nice bright image out of the television. And anything that can let me play Die Hard Arcade from my MiSTer FPGA in direct video mode is gonna be a win. So that is the upgrade for my gaming setup. I added the RetroTink 4K into my living room for my capture setup. I switched the TV out for an LG C4, and I absolutely love it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, but I'm going to sit down and play some more Die Hard. See you next time. Bye-bye.